Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa for your daily dose of news from across the continent. Coming up on tonight's show, witnesses say that they have seen Eritrean soldiers leaving several towns in northern Ethiopia. The troops who fought alongside Ethiopian forces during the civil war against Tigray rebels are believed to be heading back towards the Eritrean border. Then tensions mount once again between neighbours as the DRC dismantles an alleged network of Rwandan spies in Kinshasa. The men have been accused by the Congolese of planning to infiltrate prominent institutions. Kigali now says it is concerned for the fate of those in custody. And as the world mourns the passing of iconic Brazilian footballer Pele, we take a look at his impact in Africa. To cover the legacy of the man known simply as the Eternal King, I'll be joined by Ghanaian football expert Sadiq Adams. Thanks again for joining us. Eritrean soldiers who supported Ethiopian government forces against Tigray rebels have pulled out of the major towns of Shire and Oxum and are now headed to the Eritrea-Ethiopia border. The withdrawal follows the ceasefire signed between federal troops and Tigray regional forces on November 2nd, requiring the removal of all foreign troops from Tigray. Eritrea, however, was not a party to that deal. The ongoing presence of its own soldiers in majorly populated Tigrayan regions had raised questions about the peace accord, with locals accusing the Eritreans of severe human rights abuses during the war. Well, after a slow start, Ethiopia's government and Tigrayan authorities have taken several steps in the past week to implement that peace deal. On Thursday, representatives from both sides met in Tigray's capital, Mekelle, to set up a monitoring team to assess enforcement of the agreement. Federal police also entered Mekelle in accordance with the truce. State-owned Ethiopian Airlines resumed flights, and Ethio Telecom reconnected its services to the capital and 27 other towns.
Although it's not easy, we've started on the road to peace. But today is very special. We have tremendous respect for this decision, and it has a huge value. I thank all of you, but I would like to extend a special thanks to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed.
Mali has sentenced 46 soldiers from the Ivory Coast to 20 years imprisonment for conspiring against the government. 3 women among the original group detained after arriving at Bamako airport in July and who were freed in September were sentenced to death in absentia following the trial. Ivory Coast and the United Nations say the troops were flown in to provide routine backup security for the German contingent of the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali. Another point of tension has surfaced between the DRC and Rwanda. Early on Tuesday, authorities in Kinshasa announced on live TV the dismantling of a spy network. Cameras showed 4 men arrested and charged, 2 Rwandans and 2 Congolese. According to the authorities, the men were planning an attack and had infiltrated influential circles. On Friday, Kigali responded, saying it was very concerned by the arrests of the 2 Rwandan nationals. Clement Diroma has more from the Rwandan capital.
The 2 Rwandans detained by intelligence had been in Congo for several years and worked for the same development NGO founded in Geneva and based in Kinshasa. One of them, Dr. Juvenal Nshimiyimana, was previously employed in the country by the UN. They were arrested last August, but the news was only made public when the Rwandan foreign minister asked his counterpart for their immediate release in November. The request remained unanswered, and they've now been accused by the authorities during a live press conference of being part of a spy network. On the Rwandan side, this Friday 30th, the government spokesperson expressed deep concerns about these detentions and attacked the Congolese government, saying, I quote, that its leaders seek to fuel ethnic division and point their finger at external forces. Kinshasa says the presumed spies would have infiltrated military, political and economic circles under the cover of an NGO, but also obtained access and even land near strategic sites inside the Congolese capital in order to prepare an attack. The investigation are still ongoing, according to the authorities.
That's our correspondent Clement Diroma from Kigali, Rwanda. Former president of Botswana, Ian Khama, has been issued an arrest warrant for the possession of illegal firearms. According to the warrant issued by Gaborone regional magistrate, Khama should be apprehended on site and brought before the Broadhurst Magistrates Court. Khama is facing 14 charges ranging from unlawful possession of a firearm to receiving stolen property and money laundering, but the warrant is just for the one charge. The 69-year-old left Botswana in November 2021 for South Africa, where he has reportedly set up his base. Brazilian football legend Pele, widely regarded as the best to ever play the game, died at the age of 82 on Thursday in Sao Paulo after a lengthy battle with cancer. Known as the Eternal King, he became the only footballer to win 3 World Cups while scoring a world record 1,281 goals in 1,363 matches during a career spanning more than 2 decades. Even though he will be predominantly remembered in his hometown and Santos Football Club in Brazil, in Africa, his legacy was also massive. To talk more about Pele and what he meant for the continent, I'm joined by Ghanaian football expert Sadiq Adams. Sadiq, thanks so much for joining us. Pele actually went to Ghana in 1969, played a game against Hearts of Accra. Just talk me through his legacy now in Africa and what he meant to the continent.
Thank you very much. I believe that Pele had a very special and great bond with Africans, and they related to him just the way they related to fellow Africans. They saw Pele as someone they could look up to and dream of becoming whoever they could. The times that Pele visited Africa, so many countries in Africa, these were the periods of serious economic challenges and political upheavals. And it never mattered to him. He just wanted to make people happy in Africa. And across the continent, billions of people who saw him, particularly in Ghana, where he played a friendly game against Accra Hearts of Oak, one of the top clubs in the country on the continent, met players and inspired them. He transformed the game. So beyond playing on the pitch in Brazil, there are so many people in Ghana and Africa who were impacted immensely by his playing on the field and his political contribution to the continent of Africa. He has a very great bond with the continent, footballers and even politicians.
Now, in terms of the people in Africa, seeing a person descended from the continent making waves, the likes of Muhammad Ali, the likes of, then you had Jesse Owens before in the Olympics, but then Pele really took that and drove forward with it. How important was it for Africa to see a representation of one of their own doing something magical like Pele did?
What's very important because, for instance, in Ghana, there was Stanley Matthews who came here in 1957, the very year that Ghana attained independence. But when Pele came here in 1969, and before that in 1962, when Muhammad Ali had come here, there were lots of people who related to them, Ali and Pele, just as they related to fellow Africans. They saw them as people who had grown from the tattered neighborhoods to become global icons. And they give a lot of Africans the opportunity to dream, to become whoever they want to become. And this inspiration, I think, was very much influential in helping a lot of people pick up the name Pele across Ghana. There are so many people, footballers within that range from 1969 and to the 2000s. There were lots of young kids who adopted the name Pele. And of course, the most influential person to have picked this name and become a global icon himself is also Abedi Pele, originally born Abedi Ayew, Ghana's greatest footballer, picked this name, adopted it, and became a name that a lot of people in the world known him for. Won the African Best 3 times. And so if you talk about the relatability of people of Africa to sportsmen, Ali and Pele were the two who stood out because they came in, played on grassless pitches, interacted well with the people, never looked down on Africans. And it was more particularly because they saw themselves as Africans first and foremost. And Pele's impact on the continent in South Africa, where he visited and fought literally with the apartheid regime, in DR Congo, where he visited during the brutal regime of Mobutu Sese Seko, in Nigeria, where he visited during the serious civil war. These were things that could have deterred or prevented any sports icon from coming to those countries. It never mattered to Pele. He came and related to the people, and the impact he's had in Ghana, there are so many people known as Pele, all because of the Brazilian legend and how he has impacted this continent immensely.
Thank you so much, Sadiq Adams, really investing us in that legacy of Pele. So many, in fact, Peles around the African continent as a result. Well, from animal farming to sailing across the Atlantic, at 30 years old, former shepherd Sibusiso Zisatu is preparing to compete in the 17th edition of the Cape2Rio sailing race, which will kick off on Monday. An achievement for the young South African skipper who has defied the odds in a sport where Africans remain vastly underrepresented. Laurent Bestecker has the story.
Sibusiso Zisatu was already 9 years old when he laid eyes on the ocean for the first time. 20 years later, this former shepherd is about to set sail on the journey of a lifetime, a cross-Atlantic race from Cape Town to Rio de Janeiro. A dream come true for the South African skipper, who's had to convince his share of doubters over the years, starting with his own family.
Up until today, they still don't understand what I'm doing. Like, the only thing they ask, are you earning something? Are you working? Is that work?
Growing up in a local township, Zisatu long saw sailing as an expensive hobby for rich white people. But when a boating academy took him to sea for the first time as part of a program for disadvantaged youth, the young man fell in love with the ocean. He now captains his own crew of 5 and hopes his achievements can help inspire others to follow their dreams, even when the odds are stacked against them.
To those who didn't believe that a guy like me, who come from the rural area to a township, can actually skip a boat across the ocean to Rio. But hopefully in the future, the timing is going to be more people of color joining the sport.
Zisatu and his crew were making final preparations before setting sail on Monday. They'll be one of 15 teams competing in the Cape2Rio race, a nearly 7,000-kilometer journey across the Atlantic Ocean.
And we certainly wish Sibusiso all the best in his race. Well, that's all the news we have from across Africa for the moment, but there is plenty coming up here on France 24. From me, it's bye for now.
Join us on Down to Earth, where we explore the incredibly complex relationship between humans and our planet. We meet the people behind fascinating environmental, health and technological innovations in a bid for sustainable solutions to our changing world. Down to Earth on France 24 and France24.com.